Welcome. Thank you for joining us at Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrek. Today, we have a strategic marketer and entrepreneur whose years of experience across numerous industries led him to launch Story Amplify, a financial services marketing agency, Trey Robinson. Welcome, Trey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Trey, what inspired you to start Story Amplify, and how did your journey in financial services, content, and SEO shape the agency's vision?
Thank you for the question, by the way. I spent a lot of time at large companies and learned a lot of tricks on how to drive growth, but really my heart was in the small business space and the medium-sized business space. And so really wanted to see if we could use some of those large techniques to help smaller businesses grow. And so started with content, started with search, and really wanted to say, like, how can we push those together and make it more seamless in a content experience, but then use that content experience to drive client growth. And so really it came out of this thesis on, can we take big company best practices and scale them down to help Main Street and regional players.
Interesting. And how can creatives leverage content and PR to establish credibility in their niche?
So when we think about there's a couple of answers I have to that question. First of
Yeah.
all, I think we want, for credibility's perspective, we want third parties talking about us, right? It's just more believable to your consumer when somebody else is saying good things about you. And if you're a small business, all the way down to a local financial advisor, or even a restaurant, right? Like, start with reviews, right? That's the greatest place to get third party validation. It's just your customers and your prospects and how they're interacting with you. From there, want to scale up into PR placements, right? And if you think about old school PR, it was all earned. It was, how do I pitch an idea to a reporter and convince them to write it? In today's world, we have social media, we have placed content, right? We have blogs, we have wonderful avenues like this, like a podcast. And so it's a lot easier to have a conversation in today's world. And so that was really one of the theses that started our work, which is, how do you use your own content? How do you create a storyline in one place and then move it across different mediums, whether that's social or your own blog or a third party piece of content? But it's really one piece of content. And so at the agency, we say create once, use many. And I love the idea of coming up with an idea and then figuring out how broad you can use it. And then ultimately what we want to do is, have third parties talking about our idea. And that goes back to reviews or place content or whatever, to drive that credibility. That, like I said, that third party conversation to me is the most credible.
So, great idea, reusing, and also creating credibility. I hear all those are really important.
100%. That third party conversation to me is the best place to start. And if you morph that over into Google and you start to say, well, how do you rank, right? Google loves reviews, right? And they love domain authority, and domain authority comes by other people linking to your content. And so it helps on a number of levels to produce good creative content and have it consistently used.
Wonderful. What are the most crucial aspects of optimizing content for search in today's competitive digital landscape?
So we break that content optimization or search optimization into three buckets. The first bucket is technical. And so, does the page load fast? Are the URLs consistent with the content? Are the meta tags right? Is the schema of the site okay? Right? How are the spiders crawling it? So there's a technical body of work that's important to optimize, and really a very specific set of skill sets there. Secondly, we move into the content itself. Are we writing content that's actively being searched? Are we writing content that doesn't have too much of a competitive search term, right? We like to look for longer tail terms that aren't as competitive for clients. Is the content good? Is it helpful? Does it have titles and headers and paragraph breaks, and so that it's very usable? Is it of the right length so that someone wants to stay on the page for a while? And so bucket number two is just the content itself. And then the third piece of it is, how can we use that content? How we can get links back to that content? How can we make that content travel or have people come find that content? And we talked about that a little second ago. It could be backlinks, that could be using your social, that could be any number of techniques. But those really are the three buckets that we think about SEO optimization: technical, content, and then usage and links.
Hmm. And I love that you touched on value, because I think that's something that's so important as we're engaging with our consumers, is being able to offer value.
Yeah, I mean, Google has a lot of metrics,
Hmm.
time on page, right? Things like that. And really what they're trying to figure out, are they sticking around? Are they getting something out of this content? Now, they're very technical measures, but really what they're trying to do is figure out the user experience. And so if we start there,
Hmm.
um, that to me is the most important piece, and it kind of spreads to all of the other sections. And so, how do we understand the pain point that the consumer is going through? How do we make sure that we're answering that first and foremost? How do we make that answer easy to find? How do we make sure that it's credible and good? And then after we do that, then we can start talking about ourselves. We can talk about how we might fit into the plan, how our solution might be good for it. But we got to start by giving value to the consumer, answering their question, helping them figure out what they're trying to solve. And if we do that, then the consumer will reward us, but so will Google.
Hmm. Yes. Google is an important one to have on your side, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, could you share your methodology for amplifying organic distribution and how creatives can apply it to grow their brand?
Yeah, what we do is we start distribution by before we even create a piece of content, by looking at the Google search results, and we use SEMrush. There's a lot of great programs out there that allow you to analyze what people are searching for. And so our first step in amplification is actually topic choice, right? Like, are we writing a topic that we feel like um, will get ranked, right? And one that doesn't have a difficulty score of, 90 plus, that a bunch of people are writing and much bigger brands are writing on. And so our first step of amplification is the content selection itself. Then we talked about the technical parts of it, making sure that it's easy to be found technically and that it's good value. So, that's part two. And then we go into promotion. And so, from a promotion perspective, it really depends on the client's budget. We love having a mix of paid links to content and organic links. Google rewards that using some paid links. I mean, they are a for-pay business, right? We then move into social and make sure that it is living in our social posts. Those are our organic posts. We then come in a lot of times and boost those posts on the social platforms to drive traffic back in, because that seems to be a very effective way to drive traffic. And then thirdly, we move it into our distribution channels. Email first and foremost. So we always encourage our clients to have a monthly newsletter where they're sharing their content back out with their clients. If it's a specific topic, it could be a standalone email. And after email, are there paid placements that we might be able to drive into, or columns that we own? And so one of the other things that we do with a piece of content is try to place it in a column on a third party site that we might either be a trusted author, or they just might have a editorial submission process. But that's usually one of the last steps, is figuring out if we can get that piece of content picked up in another place. And that tends to be a little bit more organic and a little bit more hard work, but very effective if you can pull it off.
Hmm. Wonderful. And when you mentioned boosting, right? I think boosting is available to all of us, even individuals. For someone who's looking to boost and drive traffic, let's say, for example, the Instagram, is there certain like percentage or time frame of boosting that? Like, would you say, go the full investment route, or even just a little boost is going to go a long way? What have you really found with that?
So, I mean, I think each platform is different, right? And
Okay.
we end up doing a lot more on LinkedIn because of the nature of our clients than we do on like an Instagram or a Facebook.
Mhm.
But I always recommend start small. Start as small as you possibly can,
Mhm.
and then test with very small increments. And we also try to match a paid boost with some organic support. So in my particular posts, I have a group of colleagues that I have worked with for a long time. And if we're really trying to make something travel, I will post it on my profile. For example, I will then repost it from our company profile. I will then text 3 or 4 of my close colleagues and say, hey, I just posted something. If you get a chance, will you look at it and will you interact with the post as well? And at the same time, we're doing a small boost. And so what we're trying to do is make that article get interacted with in the first hour it's posted and then the first 24 hours. And we think that that's a combination of some small boost, but also some organic work. And like I said, that we find that that tends to be the best way versus paying more in a boost. It's a small boost plus some organic coverage.
Wonderful. And that's enough power behind the rocket ship of social media influence.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to what we were saying a second ago. The platforms want to promote good content. They want to have a good
Right.
user experience. And so they're using their algorithms to try to figure out, is this good content? So if we can get some of our employees, some of my partners, other folks to interact with the content, that helps it from a platform perspective. And then, like I said, we put a little boost on top of it. That helps it. And so it's just this mix of organic and paid that I feel like works the best.
Hmm. And I think a lot of brands and individuals can really appreciate using social media to really engage with their consumers. And because from what I understand, the relationship between brands and customers has evolved, and brands really need to be seen as one of the customers. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I actually was reading an article this morning about brands and brand personalities and how consumers, as much as we as marketers want to talk about what are our proof point, what makes us unique and different, the consumer really connects with the emotion of the brand. Is the brand relatable? Does the brand feel like someone that they would want to, have a cocktail with? And so the idea of using social to bring out the brand personality, I think is as important a step as, talking about why a product might be unique, have a unique benefit. A lot of times people make that brand, that purchase based on just their affinity for the brand, and that can be holistically driven by that brand's personality or how they feel about it.
Yeah, those emotions. We do make decisions based on emotions a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So what got you passionate about the work that you do, and how did you ultimately get into the work that you do?
You know, I was lucky enough that that I've always been in marketing, and you credit that to my parents, the man upstairs, however you want to give that credit. But in high school, I sold newspapers, I sold shoes, I sold electronics, just whatever I could do. I was a hustler to make some money, to pay for the next nicer pair of jeans that we couldn't afford on our own. Um, and I always enjoyed that interaction with people. Well, I end up in college and there's no sales degree at this point, right? And so what's the closest thing to sales? It's marketing. And so I just kind of followed my passion of helping people, of interacting with people. And the next closest degree, like I said, was a marketing degree. And so then I graduate and I go to work, small companies, startup gets bought by Schwab. And I start to really understand the power of marketing and how you can move the needle and how you can count widgets and understand results. And that to me was a little addictive. Like it was almost like playing a sport again, that we could keep score because we knew if we were, opening, we had a goal of 10,000 new accounts. Did we meet it? How are we doing this month? Right? You could really track your results. And so for me, it was very linear. Like I said, I love the sales part of it. That naturally bridged into marketing. Marketing then kind of almost bridged back into sales, right? And so I have loved that part of that, and then I love helping people. And so to be able to sit down with a small business owner and brainstorm with them about how we can help them grow and meet their goals, that's really what wakes me up in the morning today. But like I said, for me, it's been a very linear journey.
Wonderful. It seems like it really comes from a deep place of who you are.
Yeah, I definitely love what we do. And I think it was Yogi Berra or one of the sports announcers said, if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Mm.
And for me, that's been very true. I love the marketing side of it, but then I love the people side of it. And as my career has gone on, I've got to manage more people and have interns and do mentoring. And so just ways to, like I said, help a small business owner, help a kid starting out in his career. Those are the things that, that, like I said, get me up today.
That's wonderful. So going back to that numbers, seeing marketing as almost like a game or athletics. So how do you combine market research, competitive analysis, and brand positioning into an effective strategy for your clients?
Oh, that's a great question. We could have a whole conversation just on this one question. So when we start out with a new client, we really want to understand who is your target, how are you different, who are your competitors, and we spend time looking at the competition, really pushing our clients on their differentiation, what makes them great, and sometimes that involves us talking to their clients or their prospects because they need help to figure out why people love them, or they want to validate that what they think is right by talking to third parties. Ultimately, we mix all of those inputs together and develop a brand positioning for them. And really, what we're trying to do is be unique in the market to a very specific target. And we find if we can do that, that's when the marketing works better, right? It's one, unique to the customer, it's unique to the brand, and it solves a pain point. And like when we put that together, click rates work better, visitors show up, content resonates better, everything works better when things are unique and we know what we're doing and who we're doing it for. And so that's really the foundation of any project. We have a lot of people that show up and say, "Hey, I need a website," and then we say, "Okay, well, let's back up and talk about what we're selling and who we're selling it to." And if they can't articulate that, we'll go through a brand exercise, and then move into the marketing.
I love that you meet your clients where they're at. I think that's so important. So, why is storytelling crucial in financial services, and how can creatives craft narratives that resonate with their audiences?
One of the things that's very pervasive in financial services, but not unique to financial services, is that we have a lot of commodities, right? Like if you go to the most basic level, everybody is carrying a credit card around in their wallet, right? Or if you're a homeowner, most people have a mortgage on their home, and so and so there's a lot of commoditization, right? Like what's the difference between this credit card and that credit card? What's the difference between this loan and that loan? And sometimes we get into looking at rates, right? And that might be part of the consumer shopping process. But even in those, the rates are very similar. And so then how do we differentiate in a commodity product? And I think that's where story comes in. This is a better credit card for you because this institution believes in these things. This institution treats people this certain way. This institution is specific to this niche, right? And so then there's a set of features and benefits that are related to that niche. And so we've got to bring that story out. And that story is probably most important in a commodity field like a lot of financial services.
Interesting. I love that perspective. So, how do you approach acting as an outsourced CMO, and how can smaller creative businesses benefit from such a model?
So yeah, it's funny. I actually someone reached out to me yesterday about fractional CMO, and they want to start
Mhm.
their own practice, and they just wanted to pick my brain. I think the biggest thing for a fractional CMO is to, as much as you can, mentally not be fractional. Like, how do you pretend or how do you act like this brand is your baby and you are there on a day-to-day basis. And so you've got to kind of get beyond offering a set of services and really understand those clients, your CEO, the products they're trying to do, and then live and breathe like as much as you can in the time that you're allotted, like that is your brand and you own it and you're going to try to drive it. And so I think there's a level of ownership in the fractional CMO world that's important. And it's also very hard because you might have two or three or four brands, and it's hard to make that emotional connection, have enough time in your day to serve that many brands. But I think it's really important to, in the fractional seat, to try to deliver value like it's your own customer. And like I said, that's a balancing act, but there's some tricks to that. But I think that's step number one. I think step number two as a fractional CMO is to really try to stay in an industry, try to stay focused in a niche, because the learning curve is so hard if you move from one niche to another. And if you're trying to balance multiple clients, that becomes even harder. And if you don't have the experience behind you of making those decisions in the niche, then all of a sudden you run the risk of making a bad decision. And so as much as you can stay focused in your niche, I think also helps you as a fractional CMO be able to add more value.
Mm-hmm. Great. So how do you balance data analytics with creative decision making in your strategies?
I actually think that you got to have data. I'm a big data believer. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I like to think about is what are the data points that are going to tell us if the strategy is working, right? And so that to me is the validation. So it could be site visitors, it could be clicks, right? Those are easy ones. It could be leads, right? It could be conversion. Like there are a lot of different metrics up and down the funnel that help us understand that the consumer is moving through the journey. The consumer is progressing toward making a purchase. And those should be the things that validate the strategy. And so if we're building a strategy, what we should say is we know the strategy is right when X metric, we achieve X metric, right? And so building a strategy that's got some metrics that anchor it to reality, to me, are the way that I'd like to blend both the art and the science of marketing.
Mm-hmm. And it really is important to blend the two, especially how digital marketing has evolved and continues to evolve. But I
Sure.
imagine that's what keeps it so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always something new to learn. I mean, you can't flip a page today without reading something about AI, and how do we stay cutting edge? How do we understand and stay cutting edge for two reasons? Well, we need to be stewards of our own career, and I say that a lot to younger marketers. We want to make sure that we are proactively building our skills to stay relevant and stay growing. But also, we all have a responsibility to our clients to make sure that we're using the most effective strategies, that we're being the most efficient with their dollars. And digital marketing and marketing in general is ever evolving. And so staying on the edge of that and making sure that you're adding value to your own career and to your clients is definitely important.
What are some of your strategies that allow you to stay on the cutting edge?
Well, I will tell you, I start every day reading third-party content, reading best practices. I've subscribed to a couple of newsletters that hit my inbox. I start the day with a cup of coffee a little earlier so I can start slow, and I read articles, best practices, what's happening. I follow specific people on LinkedIn who might be experts, and so I try to just be well read in
Mhm.
our in the subject of marketing. I then make it my responsibility as an agency owner to share that with some of our younger marketing folks. So we have a great marketing channels, Slack channel at the agency. And if I read something that I find is really unique or interesting, I will put it in that channel. And then others in the agency are also doing that. And so we're trying to share best practices. And then the next thing is how do we pull those best practices into what we're doing for our clients
Mhm.
and with their permission and in a responsible way test and learn and experience in their campaigns and with their brands. And so we purposely set up small tests with our clients so we can learn together, right? And it's never let's learn on their dime, but it's more like, hey, this has worked in the past with this other client. Let's test and small for your brand and move into it and see how it works. And so I think that that's one of the benefits of being on the agency side is that we get to work in multiple clients. So we get to learn from other clients and you bring those best practices across from one client to the next. And so those are two tricks that I use. But truly do sit down every morning with a cup of coffee and read a third-party newsletter and see what's happening.
So how early is early?
Six is the goal. Now,
Okay.
I don't always make the goal, but six is the goal, right? So, it really some of it's driven by, how hectic the week is and what was happening the night before and so forth. But yes, six is the goal.
So to sit down and have your third party materials and your cup of coffee ready at 6 o'clock.
Well, no, the alarm goes off at six, and then I'm probably in the chair by 6:15, somewhere in there. And I say in the chair because I will sit in the living room in a comfortable chair with a light on. Right, I don't start my day at the desk. I start it with an iPad versus a computer, so it's a little bit more of a relaxing environment. But yes, that's the goal. 6:15, 6:20. Be flipping through the day's news, what's happening, in the marketing world. And then from there, once I do a little bit of that, I move into email. And then after the email's done, then I move into the tasks. But I like to kind of ease myself into the day.
Yeah, no, I could see how that could be beneficial. And the topic of atomic habits has come up before
Oh
in
yeah.
this podcast, and that's such a great book, but are you familiar with it?
100%. I read the book 2 years ago, I think. I think it was 2 years ago. And I'm a huge believer in some of those strategies, like in my own personal life and work, the
Mhm.
reinforcement pieces. But yes, love what that book lays out.
So, what are some of the key takeaways from that book, or just any lesson or material you've read on establishing good habits? And what have you applied to your life that you've really seen help to amplify the success in your life?
So one thing, I'm a big believer in setting goals, and those goals and taking those goals and turn them into tasks, right? And
Mhm.
so and then taking those tasks and turn them into daily or weekly. It's usually not shorter than daily, but daily or weekly um, tasks. And I have a friend, and I don't know where he got it from. I know it's pretty common. He talks about leading indicators and lagging indicators. And lagging ones are things that you measure, right? And leading ones are tasks you do. So I love taking goals and breaking them into tasks, a lot of times at the daily level. I also been a big believer in time blocking, right? Like I'm going to use this portion of my day for these activities. And it may be this portion of my week for these activities, right? A lot of that has to do with just blocking the time so that you get the tasks done. Um,
Mhm.
and so those are probably two of my favorite, right? Is breaking the goals into tasks and then setting up specific times that you can achieve those tasks, right? And kind of checking them off the list.
And so when you're referring to tasks, because I am familiar with atomic habits as well, I know sometimes it's suggested to do like, high brain tasks because I understand that I'm more of a early bird or a night owl. Are you referring to that type of time blocking? Like this is time to check emails, this is time to do like high level thinking or strategic, or when you're doing the time blocking, do you set specific tasks, like detailed, this is my to do at
Uh,
this time?
Honestly, I do both.
Okay.
I honestly do both. I write better in the morning. I know I'm
Mhm.
more creative in the morning, and so and I give better feedback in the morning. And I think it's just my personal battery is
Yeah.
full, right? And so if I have to give creative feedback, if I need to write a brand deck, if I need to review a proposal, if I need to think through a strategy, that's usually done before 9 a.m. for me. And so, but if I have a deadline, I will actually put a chunk on my calendar with the deadline. But depending on the deadline, if it's a strategy deadline, I'll put my own meeting on my calendar at, to your point, 7 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, something like that. And so I do both. I know that I think better in the morning, and I will block my calendar with a specific task so that I don't lose that time. Um, I also know that I do better when I get a task, can think about it, can work on it, can let it sit cold, and can come back and review it. So then also I use that process of reading, thinking, working, and then reviewing. And so I back a task up. If I had something that's due, I got to get a brand deck out for a meeting on Friday. I will start that task the week before so that I give myself time to work through it, because I
Mhm.
know that I don't personally work well in last minute stuff. I like to think about things. And so some of that's both sides of what you are asking. I love to work out. I love to run, but I don't run in the morning very often, because I know that I'm a better thinker in the morning, and I don't want to use that time as much as I would love to have my workout done for the day. I don't, it's not the best use of my time. And so you will see my calendar blocked to go to the gym at, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? To slide out before it gets too late and it slides off the day. So I do a little bit of both. That's a very long answer for the answers both.
But I think it's really important because what you essentially, what I heard you say is that give yourself permission to schedule your day based on when you think best. And you don't have to work out in the morning, because I feel like when I do read these suggested daily routines, working out in the morning is a great way to get your blood flowing. But I love that you recognize it's actually not the best use of my time. So I do it in the afternoon. So I think that's a very important message for our audience today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, I've spent years like thinking about habits and trying different things, personally test
Mhm.
on myself, right? Um, and so that's what works for me. And I think that's also an important message. We're all different, and we get filled up in different ways, right? And so, introverts, extroverts, all those different types of personality traits. And so learning what is very specific, what works very specifically for you, also I think helps you to have a more productive day, also have more joy in your day, right? And so yeah, I think it's very personal.
Yes. And to give ourselves permission to create and schedule our day the way that works best for us. And again, joy, that's so important, right? So that's wonderful. So what advice would you give to creatives who are hesitant to pursue their dreams due to market competition or fear of failure?
Well, I don't, I mean, I think that there is, the fear is a very powerful motivator. And I have seen people just jump in with both feet and know that if they don't figure it out, they're, sink or swim kind of mentality. Um, and I think that can work for certain people. But I think a lot of us can leg into a career or test our way into a career. And so, I think most of us don't have a job that requires 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And so, most of us, our jobs are around the 40 window, right? And so how do we take the next 10 hours and start to work on our dreams and our hobbies and our goals, right? And so, I think that you could take on a freelance project or a side gig. We live in the gig economy, but I'm not talking about driving Uber Eats. I'm talking about, if you're creative, doing some side work for a local business, writing, doing social media posts, creating some video. It depends on what your area of specialty is. But I think you can do that on the side and understand, does this fill me up? Does it drain me? Is it successful? Or is it not working? And you can do that in a way that doesn't require you to just jump off the diving board into the deep end. But I think as you find success and you find what you love, the question is, then how do I scale that, right? And that's very individual. But I do think that we can start this journey, that anybody can start this journey in the fringes, in the extra hours of their day. And yes, that might require a little less Netflix or a little less Candy Crush or whatever that guilty hobby is. But then I would say, if it's important to you, then, let's prioritize what's important to you.
Right. Yes. Netflix, social media, all those games on our phones can be very tempting, but setting those priorities is important. Now, it's interesting that when you were giving that suggestion, you mentioned try it, listen to, essentially what I heard, what feels more expansive, what may feel more contractive. And in addition to creative and marketing recruitment, I'm also a certified dream builder coach and life mastery consultant. And so I train and share methodologies for creatives to build their dreams.
Hmm.
And one of the key tools is to listen to that longing and discontent. And when we're making decisions, like you mentioned, trying out a career, try it out. And then if it feels expansive, that's a sign that that's life-giving. And if it's contractive, then it's just going to bring your energy down. So you probably want to steer away from that path. So I appreciate you bringing up that today.
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of mentoring. I love the early career professionals, the 25 age to 30 age, where they're trying to figure out what their career looks like. And I ask them a lot, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? What do you want to be doing in 10 years? And that question can be daunting for people. Like they're like, I don't know, I haven't thought about that. Some people know, like, oh no, this is what my goal is, right? And that's different personalities. But I get a lot like, I don't really know. I haven't given that a lot of thought because they're in their first job or their second job, and they're still trying to figure out what it looks like. And then if they say I don't know, to your point, my first question is, well, think about the job you have today, your last job. What were your favorite parts of that job, and what were the
Mhm.
hardest parts of that job? What did you look forward to doing, and what did you dread doing? Because those are clues for the things that how we can build a career. How can we build more moments of joy or
Mhm.
positivity, and how can we minimize those moments of dread? My wife is hates to public speak, which I know a lot of people do, right? And so for her to have a job where she needs to get up in front of 20 people and run a meeting is just going to be like, it's going to be really hard for her. And so she wants to be in jobs that don't put her in those situations. And so I think that if we think about our world, and our day to day, we can find those kind of peaks and valleys. And then if we can lean into those, I think that helps to start to lay down a career path for us.
Mhm. And I think it's important to distinguish between what lights you up and what is contractive, and then also what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, right?
Hmm.
Because we want to go towards things and opportunities and tasks that light us up, but we also don't want to shy away from tasks just because it feels uncomfortable and we may have to grow. So there is a distinction there that's key because we do want to grow as humans. And sometimes it is uncomfortable to grow and to
Yeah.
become our best selves too.
No, well said. I mean, we learn a lot in the valleys, right? Pain is a great molder and motivator. And so just because there's a little bit of discomfort there, to your point, doesn't mean something we should run away from.
Hmm.
Because there may be great joy on the other side of that challenge. And then at the same time, to your point, there are some places that, maybe if we can carve those out, maybe that's a better place too. So no, I completely agree.
And it is important to recognize that we can create a career that we do have a lot of joy in. And that is the mission of these conversations. And it sounds like you really stand behind that as you're building your career. So, what personal or professional obstacles have you faced in building Story Amplify? And how did you navigate them to continue growing and thriving?
Honestly, I would say that along the way, we would make assumptions. So we founded Story Amplify in 2018.
Hmm.
Today, we're up to 12 full-time employees, and we have about as many contractors. So we've grown quite a bit. I mean, when I say we founded Story Amplify, it was me by myself, right? And now I have a partner who has really helped unlock the growth. But along the way, we made a lot of assumptions that we needed to challenge, right? We would assume that a certain size of the market wanted a certain product or they wanted to pay a certain price point. And we had to really get into the market and sell it and then fulfill it and understand, did it work and where did we have success there, and was it successful or not? And so for us, it was a lot of trial and error on who's our target customer, um, what's our core set of services, what are the right price points per target customer, and how do we make sure that we're really resonating with who we want to serve. As we've moved up, like we go from a small business to a regional business to a enterprise business, that's actually changed. And so part of our growth has been learning the right services at the right tier. And so I would say that we got that wrong along the way. and we had to like retrench and change the service tier or repackage something or bring in a more sophisticated set of software to fulfill. Um, but it's been a lot of learning along the way. But as we learn, we get really good at servicing those customers, and then it's really easy to expand. And so if a financial advisor, for example, shows up today, we can redo their brand, build their website, get their social going. We can do it cold, and we have the process just down like a conveyor belt. And we know when we do it, they get growth. They grow out of the results. And so that's an example where we had to learn our way into the right way to serve a customer that was, had 5 employees and, two financial advisors versus, coming out of Charles Schwab. It was just a different set of skills. And so for us, I think our biggest learning along the way has been matching the target with the right set of services and pricing to help to unlock their growth.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So, with the many hats you wear, I know your team has grown, but you are a leader, you're a strategist, you're an innovator. How do you maintain focus and balance in your personal and professional life?
Honestly, surround myself with good people. I early on, I think the agency was maybe a couple years old, and I realized that um, I'm good at strategy, but I'm not as good sometimes at the execution side of it. And so I was lucky enough to be able to bring in a partner who has been a friend of mine for almost 20 years, and he's really good on the execution side. And so I was able to offload some of the things that were harder for me on the execution side to a very good and capable partner that allowed me to then focus on the things that I'm uniquely gifted at. And so that comes back down to who are the people that are on your team and who are you surrounding yourself with as being a key part of how we've grown. So that would be number one, is surround yourself with the right people and have the right roles. And as you grow, it's easier to have more roles, right? And wear less hats because you have more people on the team with you. I think the other thing is what's the goal? What's the focus? Right? What's success look like? And so for me, I'm always coming back to, on the strategy side, on the business strategy side, what do we want to be when we're done? Who do we want to be when we grow up? What's the goal of the business? And so if I anchor our strategic decisions in the goal that we're trying to achieve, that helps keep that focus as well. And so that would be my 2 pieces of feedback there would be know what, as much as you can, what the end is, have the end in mind, and then surround yourself with really good people and
Mhm.
specialists. And I think if they're focused on the same end as you and they bring a very complementary skill set, it's a great journey to be on.
Wonderful. Sounds like you've enjoyed yours.
Yeah, I feel very blessed.
Good. That's great. So, what dreams or goals, as you mentioned, are you still working toward? And how do you envision continuing to empower others in your work?
Honestly, what we would like to do at Story Amplify is at some point probably sell the business into a larger agency. Um, and we want to do that because we want to create wealth for everybody on the team. And so really, I think about money and wealth in 2 different ways, right? And so our ultimate goal at Story Amplify is to grow to a point where then we can sell to a larger agency and we can distribute the equity in the business to the owners. And we have a model where we consider the employees the third owner in the business. There are 2 partners and then the employees. And so when you say, what is a goal that you're still working on? It's grow to a point where we can have a meaningful exit, and then making sure that the ownership structure of the agency is such that a third of that exit goes to the employees. And so we have very young employees, first job at a school. We have some a middle layer of management that are, in their 30s. And so I really want to make sure that we can have a meaningful impact on the long-term financial future of every one of those employees based on their tenure and their level and their contribution. And so that's a very much an important goal of mine and one that's, actively being pursued.
Wonderful. So, anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, I would say I really enjoy the how we took this conversation into personal goals and career growth and finding jobs that quote unquote fill you up. And so
Mhm.
I would just kind of reiterate that part of our conversation. I think there are lots of places that you can add value in the world. There's lots of ways that you can be in positions that you want to get out of bed in the morning and you want to go to work. And so for those of us that are creatives, continuing to chase after those goals and find ways to have that kind of balance between work and life and that joy on both sides of the ledger, I think are important. And so I just really appreciate the fact that we could get into that today.
Yes. And I'm glad that you incorporate that into your life and you're a power of example to our audience today. So thank you, Trey, and thank you for participating in my show. And I'd love to have you back on my show again to hear more about the growth of Story Amplify and new emerging technologies that your company is leveraging.
Yeah, well, that would be great. I'd love to come back anytime.
And thank you for joining my show, Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. You can do it. I believe in you.